When Elvis got to California in 1967, filming of Clambake was delayed again because he fell in the bathroom and hit his head, causing him to lose consciousness. Priscilla and the Colonel came from Memphis to check on him. The Colonel thought that the books Larry Geller had given Elvis were causing his mood swings and unprofessional behavior. So, the Colonel asked Larry to stay away from Elvis and not talk about religion or give him any more books. The Colonel believed that Elvis becoming smarter was the problem. There was a party where books were burned. Some people think that the Colonel, who was Catholic, didn't like Elvis exploring other religions. Others believe Elvis was just trying to understand different ways to find God. A priest once said that questioning your faith can make it stronger. Elvis was probably doing that with his religious search. Sonny West, a friend of Elvis, said that being around Elvis was amazing with all the money, girls, and fun things. Elvis provided this for many people, including the Colonel, who made a lot of money from him. But Elvis had to work hard and couldn't choose what books he read at age 32. He was stuck in a career and lifestyle that gave others satisfaction but not much to him. Elvis also struggled with not having enough creative outlets and taking more medications. When Elvis got married to Priscilla in 1967, he was unsure about how this would affect his career. He had wanted to marry someone named Dixie in 1954, but his religious upbringing and his rock and roll lifestyle pulled him in different directions. Elvis had a hard time deciding who he wanted to be and what others wanted him to be. Even after proposing to Priscilla, he worried about what his fans would think. His manager, the Colonel, had told him that fans didn't want to see their idol married. Larry Geller, a friend, understood that Elvis just wanted a normal family life and to be seen as a grown-up man. Elvis and his friends sometimes felt like they could be replaced just like his fans did. Some of his friends were even jealous, like when Priscilla married Elvis. Lamar Fike thought she married the whole group, not just Elvis. Priscilla found it hard to have a normal marriage because there were always many men around Elvis. She liked the time when they were alone, and Elvis was just himself, not trying to be an image or a legend. Marty Lacker remembered that Elvis and Priscilla seemed to grow more in love after they got married. If Elvis wasn't a famous singer, he thinks their marriage could have been perfect. Elvis and Priscilla got married, and Priscilla got pregnant quickly. Their daughter, Lisa Marie, was born on February 1st, 1968. Elvis was very happy and in love with his baby girl. He was especially happy about her black hair, just like his own. Becoming a father made Elvis think about his own childhood. He was proud that Lisa Marie would have a good life, but he also felt guilty because he knew not every child is born with the same opportunities. He cared a lot about his daughter and felt a mix of love and pain. At the end of the 1960s, Elvis found happiness being a dad and made a big comeback on TV after some not-so-great movies. He started playing concerts again, first in Las Vegas and then all over the country. People were amazed to see him find his way back to being the king of rock and roll. However, this also meant more performing and less time to rest, which took a toll on his health. In the movies, he had breaks to go home and rest, but now he was taking lots of pills to sleep and wake up, which added to the problem. Sadly, this busy lifestyle caused damage to his heart, liver, kidneys, and immune system, making him age quickly. Even though he looked healthy at age 33, no one could have known he had less than 10 years to live. In 1968, Elvis was changing his career and performing again. Sadly, during this time, important leaders like Martin Luther King Jr. and Robert Kennedy were assassinated. This affected Elvis deeply, especially since King was from the truth. Elvis was working on a special TV show called the '68 Comeback Special. At the end of the show, he performed a powerful song called If I Can Dream. He chose this song because of the tough times the country was going through. Elvis promised himself that he would only sing songs he truly believed in after that performance. Elvis's career changed directions a couple of times. After being in the army, he stopped performing live and started making movies. Then, in 1968 and 1969, his career changed again, and he went back to performing on stage. The '68 Comeback Special was a big moment for him, and it was one of the 2 times he did the opposite of what his manager, the Colonel, wanted. This decision brought him a lot of success and made him excited to create again. Priscilla, his wife, said it was an intense time, and it was surprising for fans who had only seen him in movies for almost 10 years. Even Priscilla had never seen him perform live before. At first, the show was called Singer Presents, Elvis's because Singer Sewing Company paid for it, and it was meant to be a Christmas special with Elvis singing 26 Christmas songs. The Colonel, who was managing Elvis, wanted to make it like other holiday shows with singers like Andy Williams or Bob Hope. But the show's producer, Steve Binder, and an NBC executive producer, Bob Finkel, had other ideas. They wanted to make a really creative show, not just focus on making the most money. The Colonel tried to convince them to stick to his plan, but he was outnumbered. The Colonel was part of a special club called the Snowman's League of America, which was about tricking people to get what you want. But this time, Elvis had people working on the show who wanted to make it the best it could be, not just for profit. When Steve Binder first met Elvis, he was very honest with him, even jokingly saying that Elvis's career was in a bad place. Elvis appreciated this honesty. They were both around 30 years old and could relate to each other. Bob Finkel, an executive producer, suggested Steve to work with Elvis because he couldn't get Elvis to be more casual with him. So, Steve took over planning the creative part of the show while Bob distracted the Colonel. The Colonel, who was in charge of making money, wanted a Christmas song in a show Elvis was doing. He said Elvis asked for it, but after leaving his office, Elvis said he didn't like him and didn't really want a Christmas show. Elvis felt stuck because he wanted to support his family, but he didn't want to do the same thing over and over again. Sometimes, Elvis had to go against the Colonel's plans to save his career from becoming too repetitive and losing its artistic value. If Elvis had done a cheesy Christmas show, it might have hurt his reputation as the king of rock and roll. It was Elvis's willingness to stand up to the Colonel that helped keep his career strong. Steve Binder remembered that they were working with an artist who was discovering himself and enjoying it a lot. Everyone was impressed with how humble Elvis was, considering he was a big star. They also noticed that he was quite nervous. During the show, Elvis played some old songs with his original band members to relax. The Colonel, Elvis's manager, didn't want this part in the show, but he lost that argument. Later, they added a Christmas song called Blue Christmas to the show. The special helped Elvis save his career and made good ratings for the TV network. After the special aired, they made a deal for Elvis to perform in Las Vegas for a month, playing 2 shows a night every day. It was clear that Elvis loved performing and his fans wanted to see him. Elvis was changing his look and wanted new music too. His style evolved and he started wearing jumpsuits. But the music scene was changing too. Young people liked different music, like singer-songwriter tunes and artists from the Woodstock Festival. Elvis couldn't make the old music that made him famous, and the movie soundtracks didn't fit either. He had to go against his manager, the Colonel, again to make the right choice for his art. This led to some of his best songs ever, and he recorded them in Memphis at a place called American Sound Studio. Just like before, the music he made would last a long time. Some of Elvis's friends from the Memphis Mafia learned new skills and even started new jobs while still being part of Elvis's group. Red West wrote songs and worked in Hollywood, Jerry Schilling learned film editing, and Marty Lacker and Lamar Fike worked in the music business. Marty left Elvis's team in 1968 because his main job, managing a ranch, didn't work out. He started doing other things in the Memphis music scene. In January 1969, when Elvis was 34, he had a sore throat and was worried it would get better before a recording session in Nashville. Marty Lacker and George Klein suggested he record closer to home again. Marty was frustrated because he thought Elvis's career slump was due to bad songs and production, both in Hollywood and Nashville. Marty wanted Elvis to record music at a place called American Studios instead of Nashville. This was a good idea because Elvis had a successful comeback special, and Marty didn't want the new music to be like the old stuff. Marty's daughter, Sherry, said that her dad knew a talented person named Chips Moman, who was a great engineer, producer, and guitar player. Marty told Elvis that if he kept making the same kind of music, he would stay in the same rut. Thankfully, Elvis met with Chips and made songs like In the Ghetto and Suspicious Minds, which were not missed opportunities. A long time ago, in 1955, the Colonel made an agreement with Elvis about the songs he would sing. Half of the rights to the songs would go to a company publisher, and the other half to Elvis and the Colonel. This company had writers make songs for Elvis's albums and movies. At first, this wasn't a problem because Elvis could make any song he chose a big hit. But as music changed in the late 60s and 70s, singers started writing their own songs and didn't want to give up the rights to their music. This made it harder for Elvis to find good songs to sing. The Colonel wanted to keep the old agreement because it made more money that way, even though it wasn't fair to Elvis. Because of this, Elvis missed out on singing some amazing songs like I Will Always Love You by Dolly Parton. Sometimes, Elvis didn't listen to the Colonel and others in charge and chose to record a song he wanted. These songs were always successful. When he decided to record at American Sound Studios in Memphis, he knew he would have to fight against some agreements. He suddenly changed his plan and recorded there for 10 days. At first, he was uncomfortable with the new way of recording, but he soon felt inspired. After the first session, he was very happy and wanted to have another #1 hit. However, he got sick during the recording, but that didn't stop him. The song that became a #1 hit was Suspicious Minds, and the person who owned the rights to the song was Chips Moman. Elvis had to fight against the Colonel and others to make this song a success. Chips, Elvis, and others were in a tough situation with people named Tom Diskin and Freddie Beanstalk wanting them to give up rights. Chips told them no, and Elvis asked them to let him handle the recording. They decided to let Elvis do his thing, and it turned out great because the song Suspicious Minds became a huge hit. It was even ranked high on a famous music list. After recording some other successful songs, Elvis never went back to that studio again. Cousin Billy Smith wished Elvis had stood up to the Colonel more often. After working with Elvis in February, Chips Moman said he was one of the hardest working artists he knew. Elvis worked really hard even when he was sick twice during the recording sessions. He had health problems a lot, especially from the late 1960s until he passed away. He would get sore throats, flu-like symptoms, fevers, and tonsillitis often. These problems had been there since he was young, but they started happening more frequently. His body was getting weaker and weaker, and it was noticeable starting in 1973. His health got worse over 4 years, similar to his mom Gladys, but people close to him didn't really notice until it was too late. Elvis told Dr. Nick about his trouble sleeping when Dr. Nick treated him for a problem with his saddle, a part of the horse. The doctor's notes from that visit showed more than just the saddle sore. Elvis had very high blood pressure, 140/96, and complained of feeling dizzy and having back pain. He also had an ear infection which was causing the dizziness. Ear infections in adults can be a sign of a bigger health problem. Elvis's body seemed to have a weaker immune system, and this showed up in small issues like frequent sore throats and ear infections. Dr. Nick was Elvis's main doctor in Memphis and later became his primary doctor. He even traveled with Elvis and his group. Elvis wanted everyone to respect Dr. Nick, so they had to call him Dr. Nick. One day, Elvis needed to visit another doctor's office for a checkup. A nurse named Tish was assigned to help Dr. Nick with Elvis. Elvis liked Tish, and she became an important part of his care. She took his vitals and asked about his family history. Elvis was a bit shy, but Tish set a rule for him to look at her when they talked. They connected well because they both grew up poor and shared similar values. Tish even made house calls at Elvis's home, Graceland, and went on tour with him when Dr. Nick couldn't. Eventually, Tish and her family lived on the Graceland property. Nurse Tish said that it was hard to know what was wrong with Elvis throughout his life. Even when he met Dr. Nick, it was still a mystery. After he passed away, the autopsy gave some answers, but before that, no one could figure out the immune system problem he had. People didn't really understand immune system diseases back then. In the 1950s, people started to understand that there are problems with the immune system. Even now, with modern medicine, these problems are hard to figure out and treat. There are 2 types of immune system disorders. One is when the immune system doesn't work well enough, called immune deficiency disease. This makes it hard for the body to fight off infections. The other type is when the immune system is too active, called autoimmune disease. It attacks the body's own tissues. Sometimes, a person can have both problems at the same time. It's like trying to understand which came first, the chicken or the egg, when it comes to these 2 issues. About 20% of people with a certain immune deficiency have autoimmune problems too. Both types of disorders show that the immune system isn't working properly, even though they seem very different.